Chapter 34. So what happened in chapter 33? Where did we leave off? Jacob and Esau finally get back together. Was the meeting a bad meeting or a good meeting?
Good.
It was good. How did Jacob think it was going to go? Yeah, he was really preparing for the worst. And sometimes in life you're very pleasantly surprised. Sometimes you're all ate up about something you got to do, someone you got to meet, someone you got to talk to that maybe not going to go well, and then you meet with them, and everything's just as right as rain, and you're such a relief. And I can imagine, Jacob felt that way because he had gone so far preparing for this meeting. What had he done with his family? He had split them up. He says if Esau and his 400 men fall on this group can get away. So that's how bad Jacob thought it was going to go.
But he still didn't really trust the situation all the way through.
He was suspicious.
Yeah, he was suspicious.
Yeah, Jacob is a complex person, right? He's done some things that are really bad. And going back to the original deception of his brother or his father for taking the stuff away from his brother, and then he sees God, he worships God, he follows God. God is obviously blessing him when he was with his brother-in-law. What was Laban to him? Huh? Uncle, that's right. When he was at Laban's place, his uncle by marriage blessed him there, and yet he just he seems to have I've known people like this. He seems to have a problem with the truth. He seems, like I said, what does his name mean again? Supplanter. That seems to be his kind of his fallback is a fallback to deception. It seems like, because he met with Esau, things go really well. Then what did Esau want him to do? Come home with him. Yeah, he wanted to come home with him. And what had God told Jacob to do? Where was he supposed to go? Let's go to the land of Canaan. So Esau lives in Edom. But instead of just being upfront and telling him that, what does he do? Yeah, he said, "Man, I'm coming. I'm right behind you." And Esau's like, "Well, I'll leave some people with you." Nah, I don't need that. I'm good. I'm right behind you. So Esau takes off and goes. He even makes up the excuse about his kids being young, about his flocks being young. And does he go even in the direction of where Esau's going? No, he turns around and goes back over the river he just came from. And then eventually will end up in Canaan on the northern end.
Well, like you said, his flocks and everything were tired, and they couldn't travel as fast as he could.
Right.
Go ahead and go, and I'll linger in behind you, which is false.
He tells things that are plausible or partly true, but it seems like there's the motive is not there. It's always some deception. And what we're going to see in 34, that's spilled over to his kids. So whatever we do, we have to watch ourselves, one, because our relationship with God, right? But there's always somebody watching. Our kids are watching, fellow Christians are watching, the world is watching. And so, again, no man lives to themselves. You're going to answer to God for yourself, but the effects you have and how you live and what you do could have a multi-generational effect. We have to watch that. We have to be cognizant of that. That should be an encouragement to us to do better. Sometimes people will not do good for themselves. They're like, "I don't care, it's just me." But when other people are depending on them, then it gives them some encouragement or bolsters them to do better. So always have that in mind. Jason?
It makes you wonder a little bit though, unless I missed it, on the class with Jacob, and all the deception that he did, and starting out like he was. You ever hear if you ever went to God and asked like for forgiveness for those deceptions, But then again, we know that he was a man of God.
It's perplexing, right? When you read it, because the Bible is not exhaustive in everything it gives us, all the information, but it gives us what we need, right? But you're right. You would think that there would be something recorded of God saying, "What are you doing? Why are you so double-minded?" And that might have happened. You think if it would have happened, it would have been recorded. But again, God is blessing it. But we also got to keep in mind that God took care of people when he was fulfilling a greater purpose. And what was he fulfilling through Jacob? Yeah. He was bringing about his son for the salvation of the whole world. So he's dealing with men who are faulty, who are frail, who are sinful, to bring about an ultimate goal of reclaiming the whole world, if possible, through his son. And so, I mean, even Jesus said, what did Jesus say when he was questioned about divorce and remarriage, talking about God dealing with men? He said God winked at it. God, yeah, he stomached it because he was trying to bring about an ultimate goal. So maybe, perhaps this is part of that. Not sure. Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes the Bible shows us through their actions later that they, like a man of God or whatever, they don't necessarily show us their repentance, but by their actions, and that's the way people see things in us too, is my point too.
Yeah, true. And I said, and that's exactly true. We see a maturing process with Jacob. He is getting better. And again, that goes to the inspiration of the Bible for me. Whenever it shows you the biblical, quote unquote heroes, it shows you with all their ugly spots, and it doesn't sugarcoat it, right? It shows you the bad and the good. There could be several reasons for that. One, it's just true, it's honest. But two, it also gives, again, I've said this before, it gives me hope. Because I realize I'm a flawed person. And sometimes people become swallowed up or overcome with their guilt for what they've done in the past. They said, I can't do this. And look at everybody in the Bible. All of them did bad things, except for Jesus.
If it showed and explained everything that they did,
We would never read it all.
we wouldn't be able to hold it.
That's right. We wouldn't be able to read the whole thing. That's exactly right. No doubt. Okay. Anything else on any of that? All right. Let's begin now with Jacob. He's over reading the last few verses. Yeah, okay, so he the last few verses of chapter 33, he just crossed into Canaan. So he is now, at least in the country he's supposed to be in. Someone read the first 3 verses.
Now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to see the woman of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the land, saw her, he seized her and lay with her and humiliated her. And the soul was drawn to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. He loved the young woman and spoke tenderly to her.
Go ahead and read 4 and 5 too. We'll go ahead and do the first.
Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, get me this girl for my wife. Now Jacob heard that he had defiled his daughter Dinah, but his sons were with his livestock in the field. So Jacob held his peace until they came.
Okay. So they're now living in Canaan. His daughter Dinah came from Leah, goes out to see the women of the land, to go see the daughter of the land, see where she's living, right? And what happens while she's out and about? She gets raped. She gets raped. There's things that, there's things like this that, that just, it's hard for our minds and our culture here and now to get around. Do you remember going back to Abraham and Sarah? What lie did he tell over and over again?
She was his sister.
She was his sister. And why did he tell that lie?
His life.
He was worried that someone would kill him if he knew that he was married to her. And you remember what the kings would say to him? I think one was Abimelech. What he said to him whenever the deception was found out. True, but he would say, he said anybody could have easily have lain with her, talking again about sex. I'm just like, and so again, in our culture, you're like going, how is that possible? But apparently back then, women were such regulated as second-class citizens that was fairly common. Property. Yeah, for lack of a better word. Sir?
They still are in some countries.
They still are in some countries, yeah. I mean, it makes me think, in our culture, that has changed drastically, right? But you go to some places, and I mean, I don't want to disparage other countries, but I see videos and stuff of what goes on in India, and you're like, oh my goodness. And so in some places in the Middle East, right? And you're just like, wow. And so that's a very strange thing for us. You're just like, because you hear about Jacob's reaction, and what do we think? Because what did it say he did?
He held
Yeah,
his
the
peace.
peace.
He don't say nothing. Now his sons aren't there. His sons are out in the field with the cattle. He don't say nothing. But you're just like, we can't fathom. I don't have a daughter, but can you fathom if your daughter was raped? Would you be holding your peace? You'd be losing your mind.
This needs to be in my hand.
Right? Yeah, exactly. You'd be having that peace, right? But
It depends on if he was thinking that he himself, at the time, could not do nothing.
oh, that is true.
He's older.
That is indicative of what happened because he's got other concerns, and we're going to talk about that later in this chapter. But one, he's old. Because how old was he when he was going to meet Jacob? Going to meet Esau. We thought ballpark. He's 100 and something. So he's no spring chicken, and all his boys are out in the field. So what could he do? He's a stranger in a strange land, and he's old. So that might be something that's going on. But I think we're going to read some stuff later on that tells him he has other concerns because what his boys end up doing, he's like, oh man, you're killing me. You're absolutely killing me, or killing us. So again, very strong, strange reactions or strange things going on. Now, what Shechem did to Dinah, horribly wrong. But what is his reaction afterward? Again, what he did was wrong. But some people, you think of a rapist, they're just using women and just discarding them like trash. Doesn't seem to be the case. He loves her. He speaks tenderly to her. And what we're going to find out later in the chapter, it's not like he even let her go home. He keeps her in his house. Yeah.
Now, in verse 1, seemed like to me she made a mistake.
Oh, huge mistake.
Another country's daughter. In fact, she was like a curious type person or something. She was a land that really she had no protection.
Yeah. Her brothers were gone, and she said, "I'm just gonna go walk around the area and find out, talk to the girls." Again, unfortunately, even today, women have to watch themselves, right? You got to try. You raise your kids. You tell your kids, don't put yourself in a bad situation, right? Especially if we don't have a daughter, but a daughter. Ooh, don't get yourself alone. Don't get yourself isolated. Bad things could happen. And there's, it's not saying it's her fault at all, but again, a poor decision got herself in a bad situation, and this is what happened.
Do you think where it says that he humiliated her, that it only had to do with the rape, or that she became pregnant?
Oh,
Because whenever you look at Mary, whenever she was with child, Joseph wanted to put her away secretly, not to bring shame on her, and the shame would have been that she would conceive a child
Without
outside of
being
the
married.
realm of marriage.
yeah.
And maybe that's what prompts Jacob's reaction with the rest of the chapter.
Maybe. It's something I hadn't thought of, but it's definitely a possibility, right? Miles ago, maybe he wanted to marry her. Maybe that's why he wanted to marry her too. Maybe more so. Don't know.
I even think of, in the case of Mary and Joseph, their humiliation superseded Joseph's death. In, John chapter 8? Jesus told the Pharisees that they are children of the devil, and their reaction was that at least we're not children born out of adultery.
Yeah, you don't have a father yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, it doesn't tell us that, and so we can only surmise, but it's a possibility. It's a possibility. So it could have been, again, not only the humbling or the humiliation of being raped, but also the stigma of having a child out of wedlock, especially back then. Even up until recently in this country, right? It was a big deal. Now it's not, but it used to be. So that could have been very well part of it. So he goes to it. Shechem goes to his dad and says, "Get her to me for a wife." That was common back then, right? It's different nowadays. Our culture, a man goes and asks one, wants to marry him. Sometimes he goes and talks to the parents still. But Shechem goes to his dad and says, "I want her for a wife." Who else can we think of that where those arranged marriages were going on, where people told their parents, "Hey, I want to marry this person"? Can you remember any examples? Samson. Samson went to his parents and said, "I'll get me this girl. I like this girl over here." Even with Isaac, his servant going to his people, or Abraham sending back, and he goes to Laban and all them. Not only was he talking to the father of the damsel, but he was talking to the brother. There was the men had say, not only the father but the brothers, about who they were going to marry. So that's what he wants. That's what he wants to arrange. Any other questions or anything in that area, in that section?
Well, even these arranged marriages, the two that pick their own didn't seem to work out too.
You know, I've seen both pros and cons. I've seen even the description of people. You know, you look at, you know, in America today, are there arranged marriages? If there are, it's a very small percentages. What's the divorce rate? Yeah, it's probably north of 50% by now, right? So arranged, again, can you think, when do people usually decide to get married? What age? Ballpark. How many good decisions does a 20-year-old make on average? Not many. not a whole lot of them, right? So there is some wisdom in the fact that if you had parents, especially if they were godly parents on both sides, saying, yeah, we have common interests, we have a common goal, we have a common God, I think our kids would get along. Because you can learn to love somebody, especially if you're working for a common goal. So there is some wisdom like that, but now, you know, we almost recoil from the idea of arranged marriages, like there's no way, you know, let the people choose independently. So, yep, different cultures, some positives and benefits on either side, right? Okay, let's read the next section. Let's read 6 through 12.
And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him, and the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because they had brought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. And Hamor communed with them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you give him to wife, and make ye marriages with us, and give us your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. And ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade ye therein, and get ye possessions therein. And Shechem said unto her father and unto her brother, let me find grace in your eyes, and what ye shall say unto me I will give. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according as ye shall say unto me, but give me the damsel to wife.
Okay, so what's the game plan here? What's Hamor going to ask for? This is a tough negotiation, right? Between two men whose children have done, it's not an easy discussion. But what's he asking for? To be his wife, and did you anything? Right, more than just, I want this one daughter of yours to marry my son. He goes, basically he's saying, let's kind of join up forces here. Let's become one people. Business, it's a business arrangement. And you think of, again, we're outside of this so far removed, but large families, large countries, and even, you know, with Solomon, when he was marrying all those wives, was he marrying all those wives because he loved them, or was there other reasons there? There's political reasons, right? If, if I marry your daughter into this country over here, then you're probably not going to attack me, and if I need some help, you're probably going to help me. So Hamor is going to Jacob saying, yes, my son loves your daughter. He wants to marry her. But beyond that, we want you in our land. He knows enough to see that Jacob has a lot. He's a good ally, and he's going to talk to his kids later on. Whenever he's trying to sell this back to his people, because what they're going to request of him, he's like, man, they have tons of cattle. They have tons of. We're all going to have a part of that. So that's what he's thinking. It's good for his son right now, but it's going to be good for them as a whole in the future. He also offers to give something in verse 12. What does he offer to give? And the King James kind of words it kind of funny, but what's he offering? A dowry. And does he put a limit on it? No. He goes, I'll give you whatever you ask for.
Kind of, I guess, Hamor, he told Jacob what happened, because I wouldn't think he would do that. He would just go with the idea of he wants him for,
Yeah.
he wants your daughter as a wife. But evidently he told him everything because the brothers were angry when they heard it.
You're right. It doesn't tell us the discussions. We know that Jacob knows how he knows. It's not told to us how he knows. And so when these men are having this discussion, everybody's pretty much aware of the facts of the case, right? Everybody knows what happened. And so again, it's a difficult thing because on Hamor's side, they have done the wrong because it says that his brothers say at the end of verse 7, which thing ought not to be done. It might have been common to happen, but it doesn't make it right. And they're upset. And so you can imagine Jacob. Jacob is trying to walk a fine line right now. He's like, do we enter into this agreement with these people? And this that started off so poorly. And then he's got his sons, on the other hand, who are going to be asking for what? Yeah, they don't want nothing to do with this. They're young, relatively young men, and they're upset. And again, older men might have a little more. An older man like Jacob has a little more perspective, perhaps, like strangers in a strange land again. What we've got to do to coexist and exist, perhaps. And his boys don't care nothing about that. All they're spoiling for is a fight at this point.
The difference is usually it's the woman's family that gives the dowry. Here, they're offering to give them a dowry.
Yeah, because they're having to cover a sin, right? They're having to cover a wrong. And so it is opposite here. Anything else?
It's just odd that looking at yourself today, the attitude a man would have today about his daughter being raped, that's what we see then. He doesn't show much care at all. I mean, okay, it happened.
It's not recorded yet.
Yeah, no big deal. It's the boys, the brothers, they get.
They're fired up.
I mean, they're ready to do something right now.
Right.
And they do something.
And they take it into their own hands.
Yeah,
Yes,
they
sir.
do. But father just, okay, it happened.
And I think the only thing I think we get some insight on that is at the very last of the chapter, whenever the boys do what the boys do, well, those
That was upset then.
and he's like, oh man,
Yeah.
he goes, you're killing us.
Yeah.
You're absolutely killing us. So I would assume Jacob was upset. I would assume it had naturally be upset. But again, he's thinking long-term instead of immediate reaction to what had just happened, and trying to make the best decision he can.
Well, maybe like what you mentioned a while ago, it's just a different time, a different culture. You know,
Yep.
When you think back to Lot, when the men were at the door.
Crazy.
He was like, here, take my daughter.
Take my daughter.
You know, so I think it's just
You can't fathom it.
Different
We can't
mindset.
get our brain around that, right?
Yeah.
It's very difficult. Okay, 13 through 19.
The sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, deceitfully, and said, because he defiled thine other sister. They said unto them, we cannot do this thing. They give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach to us. But in this we will consent unto you, if you will be as we be, that every male of you will be circumcised. We will give you our daughters unto you, and we will take your daughters unto us. We will dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if you hearken not unto us to be circumcised, then we will take our daughter, and we will be gone. And the words of these Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. The young men deferred not to do the thing, because he delighted Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father.
That last line kills me. Who we talking about? A rapist. So the rapist is the best kid in your house. So again, you're just like, that's not saying a whole lot about your house if he is the most honorable one you have. So what do Jacob's sons, what plan do they come up with? We're going to ask them to be circumcised.
Him and all his men.
Everybody.
Yes.
Everybody. Now, are they doing that because they want to convert them to God? No, they're doing that because they want to make it easier to kill them.
We see that later.
We see that later. We haven't got to that part, but we're going to get to that part. So there is deceit, and then there is crazy levels of deceit. So they're basically using religion, their belief in God, their customs to get to somebody. I can't think anything much lower than that. I mean, I'm trying to think of an analogy today. That's like if we were trying to go out and knock doors to get people to come to church so they would give money so we could take the money to go on vacations together. Or something crazy like that, right? That's what they're doing. So what would you say about the religion at this point, the boys' religion at this point? It's not that good. It's not that strong. What do you think about the idea of them using deceit again, I mentioned this in that intro, kind of, where you think they might have come by that naturally? Yeah. They are replicating what they have seen. And unfortunately, sometimes if you don't like behavior you see in your kids, they are replicating things they have seen you do. And sometimes that's very uncomfortable. I get on Greg all the time for yelling and grabbing and stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's probably what I do. I probably should do a better job of that as I'm correcting him, right? But you gotta watch that, because your kids, again, will follow in your footsteps, probably right or wrong. Not always the case, but right or wrong. What do you think about Shechem and Hamor's reaction to this?
They're all in.
That's crazy, isn't it? I mean, that's a big request for a guy. For people, if not your custom culture, that's something that happens when you're 8 days old, you have no memory of. These are men. And they're like, it's like when you ask that, you would think the reaction would be like, eeh, I don't know, you want some more cows, you want something else, is there something else we can do to make this work out? But they're all in. So that goes to the fact that, you go back to the first part of the chapter, that Shechem loved her. How much did he love her? Apparently a lot. If he's willing, if he's happy, he's all in on this, he apparently really liked her. Again, doesn't excuse what he did, but apparently he really, really liked her. The next part of it is also mind-boggling to me. These guys, if Shechem and them weren't in sales, they should have gone in sales immediately, because they had to be the most convincing people in the world with this sales pitch that they're going to go do. Someone read 20 through 24.
Hamor and Shechem his son came at the gate of their city and communed with the men of their city, saying, "These men are peaceable with us, therefore let them dwell in the land and trade therein. For the land, behold, it is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only herein will the men consent unto us for to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among us be circumcised as they are circumcised. Shall not their cattle and their substance and every beast of theirs be ours? Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us. And unto Hamor and unto Shechem his son hearken all that went out of the gate of his city, and every male was circumcised, all that went out of the gate of his city."
Again, the most incredible sales job in the history of mankind, probably recorded right there. They go and convince an entire city, we don't know how big the city was, that everybody, every male that went through the gate, basically everyone, agreed to this. Why? What was the pitch? What were they going to get out of going through what they're going to go through physically? They're going to basically become one people, right? He talked about the exchanging of the daughters, but what did he say that's going to be theirs also? The cattle. Again, it's politics. It's nation building. Like I said, they said, we're going to get everything they have. This is a big family, a big tribe. We're going to become one with them. All that stuff that you see out there in the plains that they have, that's all going to become ours. So, again, because the men of the city weren't getting a wife, they weren't in love. But the idea of a bigger group, a stronger group, a richer group joining forces with them was very appealing. And they agreed to it. And they all do
Hamor, he was the prince of the city. You
Yep.
think they had something to do with it too?
Oh.
Because not to go against the one in charge?
it. Yes, there's no doubt that he was the head of the family. Like I said, but he didn't go and just tell them. He's trying to convince them. And again, and the comment that I made in verse 19 about Shechem being the most honorable one in this family, it doesn't make any sense, the fact that he's a rapist, but the fact that he's able to help his dad talk his people into all of this. They obviously gave them heed, gave them respect, because it was a big ask. It wasn't a small ask. It was a big one. Yeah. I've been scared of, because again, how they existed back then, they were kind of feudal. They were the powerful families kind of ruled the roost and became the prince of an area, the king of an area. And so there's no doubt that Hamor is a ruler of this area, but he's still, you're always, because it probably wasn't structured as our country and our military and stuff, there was always a potential for insurrection and someone else. So again, there's political stuff going on here. He says the princes of the area are trying to convince their people to do this. Again, because if they do this, then they're all going to be stronger. They're all going to be more wealthy. They're all going to be more protected. There's multiple reasons to do this. But yeah, there's definitely the richer, the stronger, trying to convince the poor and the weaker to go along with this. And I don't know how much choice they had, but it reads like there was convincing, that they were not just telling them to do it, that they were trying to convince them to do it. Anything else in there? Okay. Go ahead and read the rest of it, 25 to the end of the chapter.
Now it came to pass on the third day, when they were in pain, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword and came into the city and killed all the boys. And they killed Hamor and Shechem, his son, with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah from Shechem's house and went out. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and plundered the city because their sister had been defiled. They took their sheep, their oxen, and their donkeys, what was in the city, and what was in the field. And all their wealth, all their little ones, and their wives they took captive, and they plundered even all that was in the houses. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have troubled me by making me obnoxious among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and since I am few in number, they will gather themselves together against me and kill me. I shall be destroyed, my household and I. But they said, should he treat our sister like a harlot?
All right. So now we see the end result of their deceit. The third day, when they were in pain, unable to defend themselves, two brothers get together and probably took some helpers with them, because they had a big work to do here. And what did they do? Killed them all the men. Went through and killed them all. They killed them all. It mentions Hamor and Shechem specifically. And again, we find out where Dinah's been this whole time. This whole negotiation process, where she had been. Yeah, she's been at Shechem's house. He took her. She's apparently never gone back. They go and get their sister, brings her back. Then what happens in 27? Because so basically it pegs Simeon and Levi doing the destruction. Then what happens in 27? Then they all show up to go plunder, and it says they take everything. They take they spoil the city. They because of they defile their sister. They take their sheep, their oxen, their asses in the King James, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field. All of their wealth, their little ones. They take their children. They take their wise captain. They take everything from house to house. Is that godly behavior? No, because what is that showing? What sin is that showing? Revenge, greed, all of that. There are things that make us angry. There are things that make us mad. We can never use our anger as a justification to sin. What does the Bible say about it? It says, be angry and sin not, or do not sin. They don't go with that here.
Exactly what they did to their sister. They're taking their lives captives.
Yeah.
Holding prisoner just like their sister was held prisoner, basically.
Yeah, it's basically, again, if you can say it this way, what was going on with Dinah was wrong, was bad, but it was one person, right? What have they just done now? They've multiplied, they've escalated it. They're doing this to multiple people, multiple families. So.
Like what they do to Joseph later.
Right.
He's not good guys.
They're just doing poor things, poor decisions. Now we get to Jacob's reaction in verse 30. What is Jacob's reaction now? Huh?
He's upset.
He's upset. What is he upset about?
Somebody's gonna come kill him for what they did.
Yeah. Again,
What they did, but what's gonna happen to him because
that's the kicker, right? That's the way it reads. It's not like he's mad at them going, you have sinned, you have done something horrible, what is wrong with you? He is what?
scared.
You just got me killed. You just got us all killed. You watch movies sometimes, you see someone make a bad decision, and the reaction, like in a war movie, like, oh, you just killed everybody. You just killed us all with what you just did, right? That's what his reaction is. He goes, the story of this is going to get out to the Canaanites. I am going to, King James says, stink or odious in their sight. They're going to gang up and they're going to come and wipe us out, is what they're going to do. Yes, ma'am?
In verse 30, what does your version say? Does it say obnoxious? You have made me obnoxious?
Mine says stink.
Okay, you have made me stink.
Stink among the inhabitants. Who read it? Rick, did you read it? What did yours say?
He has the same version I do.
It says obnoxious or odious? It says obnoxious.
That doesn't, our terminology for obnoxious today
Yeah.
doesn't fit this to me.
Yeah, because we use the term obnoxious, someone who's just kind of like a bore, you know, like, oh, they're obnoxious, right? This is much more deeper than that. This is like, I am going to, almost like what Cain felt when he received the mark. He goes, ooh, whoever finds me is going to kill me. That's what Jacob's describing here. Whoever finds me now, whenever they hear about this and it spreads, they're coming to kill us. This is not going to go unnoticed, right? And again, the kicker to me of that is, with everything that was going on, that Jacob should have been upset with the sins going on, but until it reaches out to touch him personally, that's when he gets upset. And again, to me, that's like a character flaw. But it also, it might go into the fact of his negotiations when his daughter first got raped. He's playing the long game, if you will. He's trying to make this work out for the best overall for the survival of his family. And then what his sons just did here, did they help or hurt that? They just destroyed it, right? And he's trying to reason with his sons who are young. And this is the kind of the reasoning you get back. What did the sons say after what Jacob tells them in verse 31? He goes, we do it again tomorrow. They're not going to treat our sister like that. And so you're just like, as a parent, when you try to reason with your kids and you're and you hear the response back, their reasoning, you're just like, oh, that's just bad reasoning.
This makes me think of Matthew 5, where Jesus says, "You've heard it said, eye for eye, tooth for tooth." Those are things which were placed in the law as far as equal payment for evil.
Mhm.
But the reason why Jesus spoke against that is because of the abuse to the principle. And here you see an obvious abuse to the principle.
Yeah.
The just thing would have been to exact your vengeance against Shechem.
Yep.
Not to kill a whole
Everybody,
multitude of
the whole
people,
city.
and take daughters and wives and children as captives.
That's kind of mafia justice, right? You always see that, like that, well, you hurt us a little bit, we're going to go kill everybody you know. That will teach you not to mess with us. And that's, again, that's a young person, that's just bad reasoning. That's exactly what you see here.
You know, fathers today that have sons and daughters will tell their sons, you know, kids going off school, take care of your daughter.
Right, sister. Watch your
protect
sister. Watch your sister, watch your younger brother. They'll tell them that.
Right.
But again, going back to Cody's point, if Simeon Levi had gone to Shechem and running through with a sword, just him,
Yeah.
you'd have said, okay, that's fair. The fact they went and killed the whole city,
What they did, yeah.
yeah, no, you can't. That's not acceptable, right? You can't go do that, right? And also, then Jacob, as we're only got a few minutes here, he does mention this at the close of his life. Turn over to chapter 49, verses 5 through 7. This is as he's dying. This is he's gathering his sons together to talk to him one last time. In verses 5 through 7, he says, Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty or weapons of violence are their swords, are in their habitation. O my soul, come not thou into their secret, unto their assembly. Mine honor be thou not united. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they dig down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Jacob, and I will scatter them in Israel. So he remembered that. He did not let it slide. Yeah, even towards the end of his life, he brought it up again. And it said, it ain't right what you did. That's a Texas term, but it isn't right what you did, right?
But essentially, he has a prison trial.
Right?
And
Right?
That's the